Do you ever feel like the past is, well, not quite in the past? Like maybe it's silently pulling the strings in your daily life? Yeah, let's dive into this. Because here's the thing, the tough stuff from our childhood, it doesn't just magically vanish when we grow up. Or maybe you feel like you're just stuck in the same loop in your relationships or with how you see yourself. If any of that is ringing a bell, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to really unpack how those early years can leave, well, a really deep, lasting mark. And here's the thing that gets a lot of us. We're not talking about big, dramatic, movie-style flashbacks all the time. Nope. More often, it's these quiet, subtle patterns. They're woven so deeply into the fabric of who we are that we just mistake them for our personality. We just think, oh, well, that's just how I am. All right, before we get any deeper, I just gotta put this out there. This is all for educational purposes, to get us thinking. If any of this stuff really hits home for you, please consider reaching out to a qualified mental health professional. It can make all the difference. So, where do we first start to see these echoes of the past? Well, a lot of the time it's right there in our relationships, our most important connections with other people. That's often the stage where these hidden patterns really come out into the light. Okay, so let's talk about people pleasing. We've got to make a really important distinction here. Being nice, that's a choice. It comes from a place of kindness. But chronic people pleasing, that's a whole different ballgame. See, if you grew up in a home where love and safety felt conditional, like you only got them if you were quiet or easy or agreeable, your brain basically learned that having your own needs is dangerous. So saying yes to everything, it becomes this automatic reflex to keep the peace and stay safe. And this really gets to the heart of it. It explains why some of us find ourselves in chaotic or unhealthy relationships and stay. Because if your childhood felt like a roller coaster of emotions, that chaos can actually feel strangely familiar, right? Almost comfortable. A calm, stable, safe relationship can feel boring or even suspicious because your internal wiring was never taught that pace actually equals safety. All right, now let's talk about another pattern, this extreme, almost fierce independence. You know the type. On the surface, it looks amazing, like a superpower. You're the person who can handle anything and never needs help. But that superpower, it usually comes from a really tough place. It's built on a core belief, learned way back when, that you can only truly count on yourself. Maybe because the adults in your life were unreliable or even unsafe. You learn fast that being vulnerable, that asking for help, it just led to being let down or worse. And this is so important to understand. We need to reframe this. This isn't a character flaw. It was an incredible act of self-protection. That hyper-independence was a brilliant survival skill that kept you safe. The only thing is, now, in your adult life, it might be leading to burnout and feeling really alone. What about over-apologizing? Saying sorry for everything, sorry for taking up space, sorry for asking a question. This has nothing to do with being polite. It's actually a preemptive strike. If you were made to feel like you were a burden as a kid, saying sorry all the time becomes this automatic way to disarm people, to deflect any potential anger before it can even get started. Okay, so we've talked about how this shows up in our relationships with others. Now, let's turn inward. Let's look at the internal landscape, the quiet war that can be raging inside our own minds and hearts. Do you ever just feel numb or kind of flat, like you're disconnected from your own emotions? There's a word for that. It's called dissociation. It's basically the mind's emergency escape hatch. When emotions were just way too big, too scary for a little kid to handle, the brain just learned to unplug. And now, as an adult, that can show up as just not even knowing what you're feeling. Here's another big one, that all or nothing black and white thinking. In a chaotic, unpredictable childhood, you just don't have the luxury of seeing the shades of gray. You have to make snap judgments to stay safe. Is this person safe or dangerous? Is this situation good or bad? There's no in-between. It's a brilliant survival tactic for a kid, but in the complex world of adulthood, it can really cause some problems. And what about your relationship with success? Is it complicated? Do you ever find yourself self-sabotaging right when you get close to a goal? Or maybe you do succeed, but you feel like a total fraud, like you're going to be found out any second. So often, this goes back to a time when being visible, when succeeding, was actually dangerous. It could have brought on criticism, jealousy, or just the kind of attention you did not want. And this is such a deep one. Do you sometimes feel like a little kid trapped in an adult's body, especially when you're stressed or overwhelmed? Or is it the opposite? Do
Do you feel like you've been an old soul your whole life? Like you were forced to be the grown-up too soon, and you completely missed out on just being a kid? Both feelings are so valid, and they're both signs that your natural development was disrupted.
Okay, so we've covered relationships, we've covered the war inside our heads, but this isn't just a mental thing. Not at all. These experiences, they live inside our bodies. The physical side of this is so real, and we have to talk about it.
You know that feeling, that inability to ever truly, deeply relax, that constant buzz of anxiety humming just beneath the surface? That's a state called hypervigilance. And listen, it is not a personality flaw. It's your nervous system, literally stuck in the on position. It's still scanning for danger, just like it had to do to survive way back when. And even though you're safe now, that internal alarm system, it just doesn't know how to switch off.
And that constant on state, it takes a toll. This is often how deep emotional pain ends up showing up in our bodies. Our bodies hold on to what our minds might try to push away. Things like chronic pain, that bone-deep fatigue you can't sleep off, constant digestive problems, headaches. These can all be your body's way of screaming that there's deep, unresolved emotional stress. Your body is literally keeping the score.
Okay, if you hear nothing else I say today, please hear this. This is the most critical point. All these things we've talked about, the people-pleasing, the hyper-independence, the anxiety, the physical pain, these are not your flaws. They are not signs that you are broken. They are the battle scars. They are signs of a brilliantly resilient person who came up with incredible strategies to survive an impossible situation. So, wow, that's a lot, I know. The big question is, where do we go from here? And the really beautiful, hopeful part of all this is that what was learned can be unlearned. Healing is possible. So let's talk about what that path forward might look like.
The very first step is awareness. It's exactly what we're doing right now, just seeing these patterns for what they truly are, old survival skills, not character flaws. The next step, self-compassion. It's about letting go of all that shame you might be carrying. And from that place, you can start to make new, gentle choices. And please remember, you do not have to do this alone. Finding the right support can be a total game changer. I want you to really let this next thought sink in. It's a way of honoring every single part of yourself, even the parts you don't like. The very patterns that cause you so much pain today are the ones that got you here. They were essential. They worked. They kept you alive. And that deserves a huge amount of respect.
And that brings us to one last really powerful question. You have already survived so much. Your strength is not in question. So what if healing isn't about fixing something that's broken inside you? What if choosing to build a life of peace and safety on your own terms is actually your next great act of survival? Just something to think about. Thank you so much for joining me.